Jay here for Stretford Paddock. That's Joe Smith. This is Paddock Live. We have got loads of... Stop smiling at me, for starters.
Why?
Because you know why. We've got loads of transfer stories to get through and loads of Manchester United stories to get through. But before we do... You all right?
Yeah, are you?
No, I'm not. And you know why I'm not.
Tell her what's happened, because it's weird.
Joe has just... gassed us. It's absolutely disgusting.
I don't understand.
Right, honestly, I can...
It could have been anyone.
I can taste it in my mouth.
It literally could have been anyone.
It was you.
What are we talking about today,
You were so
Jay?
proud of yourself when you did it.
I wasn't.
As well. You were smiling and you did it, and now I'm suffering. We're going to be talking about the exodus, the clear out. You need a clear out.
Have I just had one?
The clear out of Manchester United. There's a load of names that have been suggested, could be heading out the door in the summer. Some of them are like expected, some of them are a bit of a surprise. So we're going to get into all that. Plus we've had, I think a couple of the staff have left recently. Yes. And we've got a load of other stories as well.
There's loads to talk about. It's actually popping off at Manchester United at the minute, isn't it? Should we get into it then?
Let's get into it, go on.
Right, let's start with this then. What we got? Lowering the Berrada. It works.
Yeah, it works.
It just works, doesn't it? You can't really argue that. Omar Berrada has admitted the club risk falling further behind their rivals when they invest in their new stadium. Berrada told reporters that is a risk. That clearly it's something we want to avoid. We don't want to inhibit our ability to invest in the team for us to continue being competitive while we're building a new stadium. The aim is to move into their new home in 5 years ahead of the 2030-31 season. Work could start before the end of the year, although Berrada said it would be predicated on planning permission and how quickly the local authority can work. Despite a difficult start to Ruben Amorim's tenure as head coach, Berrada said he would love to open a new stadium with Ruben as coach. I didn't realise I don't think I'd seen Omar Berrada speak much until this, because I was shocked, not shocked, but surprised by, he's almost got like an American accent. Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Because obviously he's Spanish, he's lived in England for a long time. His English is almost just, you wouldn't necessarily even know English wasn't his first language, and I'm assuming it isn't, but it's a slightly American accent, obviously spoke really well.
You get a lot of that though, don't you? Like, I noticed that when I lived in Greece for a little while. A lot of the Greek people there, their accents were American when they spoke in English.
Yeah, because you're watching
American films
and
stuff like that.
and listening to music and stuff.
Inadvertently pick up a bit of twang.
Yes, but this all makes sense. I remember, but not everyone will remember this. If you're under the age of...
grew up in the USA, I don't know.
Okay, there you go, that would make sense then. If you're under the age of about 25 maybe under the age of 20, you might not remember. Do you remember how much conversation there was around Arsenal not being able to spend while they moved to the Emirates and while they built the Emirates? It was this whole big thing of like, one of the reasons people thought Arsenal dropped off after 2004 was they kind of had to save money whilst they were building the new stadium. Do you remember that whole narrative that was going on? Obviously 20 years or so ago now, I think it was 2005 they moved, or maybe 2007 anyway, that ballpark. But that was spoken about all the time. It was spoken about a little bit with Tottenham, although I feel like the way financing works now in football, it hasn't been such an issue, and they managed to recover a lot more quickly. But for a long time it was like, we might not be able to spend very much because we're getting the Emirates. And I hope that isn't too much of a narrative around United. Hopefully we can get, sort of however we end up funding it, it is going to be debt of some sort, because we haven't got 2 billion in the bank. It's just that simple. If you haven't got 2 billion in the bank, you can't spend 2 billion quid without help from other people. However we spend it, hopefully, or however we get the money, hopefully it doesn't inhibit our ability, like he's saying there, to buy players and to be successful on the pitch, because it doesn't influence PSR. They can be separated if the money can be, found independently, and hopefully they can do that, because otherwise we might get worse, even worse than this before we get better, and that wouldn't be good enough. Really.
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I say the word interesting to see how it all pans out. I remember the whole Emirates thing with Arsenal. I think that was slightly exaggerated.
Maybe it was.
Because there was in terms of the time when Arsenal did drop off, I mean, from 2004, they didn't win the title again. Mm-hmm. So there was that. But also, they made so many mistakes in terms of renewing contracts and not keeping all the right players and bringing in and overspending on other players as well. I do feel like Wenger lost his mojo a little bit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? He sort of wasn't the same manager after a little while, and he wasn't finding those little gems like he had. And you remember, they let Ashley Cole go for the difference of $5,000 a week or something? Yeah. Do you remember, he wanted 65, they said 60,
And then what did he win? Another 2 or 3 titles at Chelsea?
Yeah, and it was just like little things like that I think a mistake. But I hear your point, obviously. That's the big question. What's this going to cost?
Yeah.
Is how much is going to affect the sort of performance on the pitch? I mean, we can't go much lower as it is, otherwise we're going to be playing in the bleeding championship.
Yeah.
But there's lots of questions that have still not been answered yet. And so far, what we've got is this plan, this proposal, these pictures.
Yeah.
It looks great, but not. We need to see what is going to happen. I was talking about this morning, and we'll find out, because I do expect like a certain increase in ticket prices, because that's the way it works anyway. Usually, I know they were frozen for a bit, but I don't want it to be like your ticket price is going to get doubled. Plus, we're going to be ploughed in loads of debt, and we're going to be playing in the Aldi Arena. You don't want everything to be just rubbish, and we're not going to be able to buy any players for the next 10 years because of the stadium. You'd be like, well, that's not really worth it.
Yeah, you can stomach 1 or 2 of those things.
Yeah,
the ticket price is going up, but the name stays the same, or like you said, as long as it's not most or all of them. All the downsides, with the potential upside being you get to sit in a stadium with more people around you. But really, if it's costing you $2,000 a year in a season ticket, then is it even worth it anyway? Let's move on then. Let's move on to our next story, because this is another part of basically the same conversation, talking about the naming rights. Snapdragon in the money bag.
Snapdragon in the money bag?
Snapdragon in the money bag.
What's that?
Dragging it in the money bag.
What?
Like dragging it in.
Like dragging in the money bag. Is that a phrase?
Yeah, man.
What,
Don't say yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Is that a phrase? Yeah, man.
Dragging in the money bag. That's
Dragging
not a
in the
say.
money.
No one says that. Google that, Jay.
I'm gonna
Just yeah.
let's have a little search here. So, is dragging in the money bag a well-known phrase?
In English.
I'll just put his name. Dragging in the phrase "dragging in the money bag" is not a widely recognised or well-known idiom in the English language. It doesn't appear to have a standard meaning or common usage in popular culture, literature, or everyday speech based on general knowledge or linguistic patterns. So, no. Yeah? Dragging in the money bag isn't a saying. Okay?
And you were close as well, because dragons are known to sit on piles of gold. That's where dragons live, isn't it? On
You could have had,
gold.
according to these suggestions, raking in the money or bringing in the money, both of which are established phrases implying earning or collecting a lot of money. Dragging in the money bag could be a creative variation or misremembered version of these, but it lacks the widespread familiarity of these expressions.
Thoughts, Ethan?
Creative variation.
Don't say creative variation. You're giving him out there. You've given him a way out. Creative variation. Fucking hell. Unbelievable.
Yeah, it's pathetic.
Yeah, I almost said something terrible then.
Go on.
No, I can't. It is terrible. Right, let's read this then. So Manchester United could sell the naming rights of their new stadium. Football finance expert Professor Rob Wilson. Hang on a sec. That's not our football.
I saw this
expert,
yesterday
is it?
on the beat when I was doing that thing outside of Trafford. He said this.
There is only one
The
football
guy
finance
said,
expert.
we're going to speak, later on we're going to be speaking to football finance expert, and then he said Professor Rob Wilson, and I genuinely wanted to chin him.
You flipped your children's fish finger and beans all over the place, didn't you? You just the whole table just went
Honestly,
up.
I was raging.
What is this? Kieran Maguire or nothing, I'm afraid.
I've got no interest in what anything this idiot's got to say.
But let's read him. Let's hear him
Okay,
out.
fair enough.
So he says, I suspect we'll see the stadium called the Snapdragon New Trafford. Right, fuck off, Rob.
Yeah.
Because what in the I'm being a little bit of a cutesy boy is that? Probably the bloody Snapdragon New Trafford, more like. Probably called the Jim Ratcliffe is the best arena. What? I suspect. You're meant to be an expert, and you're coming out with this playground BS, man. The bloody Labour Party have anything to do with it? What is this? I just want to drive my petrol car and get on with it. It's probably called the Snapdragon New Trafford, more like. Anyway, that will probably generate United somewhere in the region of 50 to 60 million pounds a year, if our modelling is correct. So let's get this straight. So he has, on one hand, he's got this modelling that is really sort of high-tech, is inferring this idea of some kind of craft that has got all these servers and things wiring around, sending models everywhere. Snapdragon New Trafford. Bollocks.
Yeah, it just seems like he's just speculating now.
He's speculating, isn't he? So 50 to 60 million a year, let's say that's the bit that maybe we can rely on here, if our modelling is correct. The reality is, Snapdragon have seen a huge uptick in exposure as a consequence of being in partnership with Manchester United, and that's against on-field performance, which has been worse than mediocre.
So everything's been shit.
Yeah.
Do you want to sponsor some more?
Yes.
I don't know. And you don't know what's going to happen with sponsors and stuff, do you? Because United go through quite a lot of sponsors, like shirt sponsors. You know what I mean, like Chevrolet, or even like going back even further, like Vodafone. It's not like since the Sharp days that we've had a sponsor for a shirt sponsor for a long amount of time. AIG.
We usually have like 5-6 years.
Yeah, it's usually quite short term nowadays. So we'll have to wait and see. It could be a company we've never even heard of.
The whole new Trafford thing.
Yeah.
That doesn't make any sense, does it? Because
isn't that just speculated though?
But I mean, as in the stadium wasn't called Old Trafford because it was old.
Yeah.
When it wasn't like, oh, this is an old stadium, so we'll call it Old Trafford.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? That isn't why it was called that, is it? So why would the new one be called New Trafford? You're not naming it based on the age of the stadium. It's the name of the place.
Yeah.
Like, do you know what I mean? Why would New Trafford be a thing? That isn't. Is there a place called New Trafford that I've missed?
Not that I've heard of it. If there is, it isn't in Manchester anywhere I know of.
So
do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't really understand that.
Right.
And I get it. It's like a sort of we're being a little bit cheeky because it's a new version of Old Trafford. But surely New Trafford just couldn't be possible as a name. Why
The trouble with United as well is we've got one too many iconic managers as well, and legends, too many legends to name it after. Yeah. I think if you had an obvious one, if there wasn't a Sir Alex Ferguson, you call it the Sir Matt Busby Stadium or whatever, everyone would be like, yeah, but people say, what about Fergie? And vice versa, if you call it the Sir Alex Ferguson Stadium, people say, or you call it the Sir Bobby Charlton Stadium, people say, what about Fergie, what about Busby, what about, maybe even other players and the Busby Babes and all the rest of it. So there isn't an obvious one where you'd go, okay, we're going to name it after this person. If there is naming rights, then obviously it's completely different anyway. But if you're just choosing a name, then New Trafford to me just sounds a bit naff. Yeah,
it's like that. It's just like.
Give us your stadium name suggestions.
Yeah, genuine ones, or even silly ones.
Yeah, it can be a little bit.
Whatever. Let us know. Yeah, what should we call the new stadium?
Yeah.
I just think
what would you call it?
Old Trafford. Right. And if we have to, call it Ineos Old Trafford.
My favourite album is The Best of the Beatles.
Yeah, or Snapdragon Old Trafford, because at least then you'll still call it Old Trafford. Right, do you know what I mean? And if it's called the Snapdragon Arena, eventually we'll just call it Snapdragon. Whereas if it's called Old Trafford, we'll call it that. Go on.
Mole's put the Bellum Arena. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Bellum.
I tried to say Bellingham and my brain just cut it down by 2/3. Yeah. Bellum. Still know what happened there.
I don't know.
I still can't quite remember what happened there. My brain just shut off. It's horrible, that.
We're getting some suggestions. Connor Wickham-Smith says Ole Arena. Harry David says Fergsby.
I like Ji-Sung Park.
Yes, someone put Ji-Sung.
That's really good because it kind of is a name and a stadium all in one.
Imagine if we named it after a good United player.
Because his name sort of ends with a word that can sometimes be used in stadiums.
So it's like he's now like
Ji-Sung Park.
Yeah.
That's quite good actually.
The Jays Park Arena says Mick Holohan.
Yeah, that's good.
Flashburn 52 says Butter Me Up Stadium.
That's not bad actually.
Yeah. Geordie Pilling says Sloppy Joe's Arena. YouTube. What?
What else does someone say then that's better than that? Probably nothing. What would you call it, Jay, genuinely?
Miss Man United says the Marrow Arena because she likes Marrow and Fellaini. Well, that's never going to happen. And what?
Marrows.
Marrows, yeah. What? What are you saying?
Right.
What are you saying?
What's happened there is...
See, Miss Man United is my missus,
I know
the
who
mother
it is,
of my children.
Thank you. Hello.
And you're going Marrows.
No.
Right, with a smirk.
No, there was no smirk. So what happened there is, I said Marrows just thinking about the...
Have you seen in China?
The gourd-like sort of root veg.
Right.
Not root veg, they grow on land. But then they chuckled and tittered behind the camera, which then got into your head. What I'd said was absolutely normal. And a marrow, anyway, is...
I will not have
way too
marrows banded around this channel willy-nilly. Right. I'm glad this game's gone really well. By the way,
I promise that was just genuinely.
Right, Peter Mullen says the Manx Stadium What did you say? What was your genuine suggestion?
Old Trafford, or Ineos Old Trafford, or Snapdragon Old Trafford, whatever. As long as it's got Old Trafford in the title, we'll just call Old Trafford and it's fine.
Yeah, all right, let's do that.
Do you know what I mean? Don't overthink it. Let's just fucking call it Old Trafford.
Call
and
it.
It's in the exact same place. It's not like we've moved like City up to across Manchester and we're going to have to kind of work it out. It's the same place. Do you know what I mean? It's literally the same plot of land owned by Manchester United. Move one, bigger, still Old Trafford, fine. Yeah?
Yeah, I suppose. Yeah.
Why would you go creative with it?
I don't know. I'd like something, right? This is how sad and bitter and twisted I am.
Yeah.
Just something like the Manchester Stadium. Because City just get well wound up.
Yeah.
And they'd be like, what do you mean the Manchester? You're not even from Manchester, you're actually from Salford. That was great at Manchester. Trafford's not even in Manchester. You fucking short video on TV for Manchester, you're just rubbish. So I'd probably go with something like that. That'd be me. Do you know
I like
what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean? Because it's just fucking, you know it'd get under their skin.
Yeah, it would actually. The
Right.
real Manchester.
Yeah, that's it. Like,
Yeah, that's nice actually. Maybe we could do that. Right, let's move on. What we got next? Jim said, F Rashford, F Sancho, F Leacher. What did he say F me for? What's this? Is this a 50 Cent reference? Is this one of Ben's big references again? Right, Ethan's immediately got his head out round the corner of the monitor there, nodding along like he said all along they're not going to get this.
Yeah.
I knew he did. Obviously, it's a reference to something 50 Cent said on what looks to be an Instagram live, maybe during COVID. Is that really a famous reference, Ben?
Yeah. I'm actually baffled again.
We're not.
what
big-
are you baffled at?
Just that you don't know it.
Why, what happened here? Explain the reference to me.
It was a thing going around about diss tracks and then...
About what?
Diss track.
Diss tracks.
Discharge.
Diss
50
tracks?
Cent, 50 Cent got dissed out of nowhere, so he's saying he basically says that quote with different rappers' names.
Well, yeah, I think I have seen this, by the way. To be fair, this is a much better and more contemporary reference than the Engelbert Humperdinck one you did a few weeks ago.
Okay.
Yeah?
This
So
is a
at least
reference
this is someone
I want to be associated
we
with.
know about.
But I don't know it. But there you go. 8 United players could be set for the Axe this summer. This is according to Mail Online. Sancho was one of the players singled out by Ratcliffe, who revealed he will cost the club another 17 million this summer. There's still a possibility that Sancho could return to Old Trafford. And this is mad. We'll talk about this a little bit as well. If
mad, I tell you.
If Chelsea decide not to make his loan permanent, even though the clause in the contract says they have to, but we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
If the cost of rebuilding United's squad wasn't steep enough, the club could bank as little as 20 million from selling Rashford this summer. Why? The other players name-checked by Ratcliffe were Anthony, Casemiro, Højlund, Onana and Martinez. United would listen to offers for practically all their players, with £60 million Mount, another player who would sell for a lot less than he cost. Eriksen, Lindelof, Evans and Heaton are set to leave as free agents. So let's talk about the initial story here. Ratcliffe obviously has listed a number of players. There's been reports for multiple transfer windows in a row now that we are willing to sell basically anyone if we get a decent offer for them. What do you make of this? The continued, basically, just fire sale at Manchester United?
I think there is going to be a something of a fire sale, and I think there needs to be a little bit, because we've got so many players who aren't up to it, who are on massive wages, that just getting them off the wage bill is obviously going to benefit the club and hopefully enable us to spend a little bit of money. Plus, you've got players that you can get some money for. I mean, it does deflate me a little bit that you're looking at as little as 20 million for Marcus Rashford. I think the big part of that depends on whether Villa want him. I think Villa can get him for 40. He's doing well at Villa. I was watching him earlier, and he's not. I don't think he scored yet, but he's assisted quite a few goals. And also, I think that suits Marcus Rashford. If Marcus Rashford is one of your attackers, and you've got other attackers that can score goals, and you're winning, it's fine. It's when you're relying on him to be your main goal scorer that you've got issues. Yeah. And I think that's where United have struggled in the past. So I'm hoping it works out for him there. We get 40 million for him, but if not, the club will have to take a bit of a hit and try and sell him elsewhere. The thing with Sancho, as I had this in my news this morning, I think there was a story in the Mail Plus, I think that it's part of their confidential article, whatever it is, I can't remember what they call it.
I think this is that.
Oh, is it? Forgive me. So it was saying that basically Chelsea could decide they don't want Sancho. Yeah. And if they don't want him, there's a clause in the contract, you can call it a loophole or whatever, whereby they can pay United a fee to not take him. So you imagine that fee will be less than 20 million quid in his wages. Yeah. Obviously, otherwise, what's the point? But I don't know the number, but let's say, for example, that fee is 5 million quid. Yeah. And you go, right, we're going to pay you the 5 million quid, not give you 20 million and take on his wages for the next 10 years. 10 years. Next few years, sorry. Now, that sounds a bit daft to pay 5 million to not take a player, but it's not beyond the realms of possibility, because you've got to remember two things here. Chelsea love a loophole. They love a little contract loophole that no one else really thinks of, and they do. And also, Jadon Sancho, he's having one now at Chelsea.
Yeah.
He's in a rut. I think I saw a stat from Statman that Statman Dave that he's not had a shot or a cross since in 2025 or something, which is what?
That's just
like something like that, paraphrasing. And also, there was another one where it was a list of games where he's not had a goal or an assist, and I think it stretches back 11 games. Now, if that's someone on loan, are you really wanting to buy that person?
Especially when you've got a 40-man squad.
Yeah.
Like, you're desperately trying to thin the herd, not buy more people who you can't sell
No,
on.
he's just not doing anything for them at all. And it's like, they must be looking and going, what are we getting out of this? Like, is it worth just paying the fine, or if you call it a fine? I don't know. They might not. They might go, look, he's having a bad spell. We've got this obligation to buy. We are going to stick to that, because otherwise we're just paying for literally nothing. Yeah. We're paying money for nothing. Or at least if we're buying Jadon Sancho, we're getting a footballer. But it's not beyond the realms of possibilities, what I'm getting at there.
How mad would it be, by the way, for like where you think Jadon Sancho's reputation was 4 years ago when he was at Dortmund? He was getting 15 plus goals and 15 plus assists a season, back-to-back seasons, just absolutely smashing it. One of the most exciting young players in the world. Flash forward a few years, and a team is literally paying £5 million to not have to have him. That is, and I've never heard a team ever do that before. By the way, I've never heard of a team go, "We'll give you £5 million to not have this guy." I've never heard that.
No.
And it's coming to, and it may well happen. Hopefully, like you said, they'll just buy him and it'll be fine. But it may well happen to one of the most exciting young prospects we've seen in England in the last 20 years at one point. Now, Chelsea will go, just fucking take £5 million so we don't have to have him. That is crazy, isn't it?
In many ways, right, and I was saying this morning live, like, there's a part of me when everyone hates on someone who's a United player, I want to stick up for him. I just like to have a default setting where you're like, look, everyone's on his case at the minute. I know you're probably the preacher of the choir, you always do that. When everyone's on someone's case, a player's case, whatever, you'll be like, look, hang on a minute, this is getting a bit OTT now. And I'm with you on that. I feel like that. But it's very difficult with Sancho to sort of stick up for him or defend him anyway. His actions haven't been great. He's had enough chances, in my opinion, at United with different managers, and it's always like, oh, this was this position, or he wasn't fully fit, or wasn't that. Come on, man, he just wasn't good enough. Yeah. I don't even know if it's pure talent. I think sometimes it might just be mindset. He's gone to Chelsea, and he's done similar to what he did at Dortmund last season. Started off really well, and then he's had this lull. Now, the difference at Dortmund was, in the Champions League, I think it was Paris Saint-Germain, first leg of the semi-final, he turned up there and was player of the match and was fantastic.
Yeah, it was fantastic.
This time at Chelsea, he's just in a rut, and there's no signs of it ending. Hopefully it does, and hopefully he can move on. And we don't know the figures involved, by the way.
No, of course, that was speculation.
In the super chat, Suvajit Chakrabarti says, why can't we just call it Joe Trafford? Talking about the new name of the stadium.
I like that.
What's this one here anyway?
I don't want to get rid of Martinez. He was name checked apparently by Jim Ratcliffe. I think the only downside for Martinez for me is, I know obviously if you're really digging into him, you give him a bit more pace and maybe a bit more strength and a bit more height or whatever. But he's world class on the ball. One of the best ball playing centre backs. Actually, I think he's the best ball playing centre back I've ever seen at Man United. I can't think of anyone at United that's better on the ball from that position than him. Even when Daley Blind played there, I think he's more composed, he's quicker on the ball, he gets caught on the ball less than Blind did. I think he's fantastic at that. It's just the injuries. The real problem here is the injuries. He's had a broken metatarsal, and then he had to have a second surgery on that broken metatarsal. Then he had that sort of sprained knee, which was a few months out. Now he's had a complete ACL tear within the other knee, which is, at least it doesn't, point to a particular weakness from that initial injury. But it's 4 relatively big or massive injuries in 3 seasons. That's not a great sign, is it? I don't know if it's something that just happens to be bad luck and, he'll go the next 5 years with nothing like this. But I don't like this. I know some players have these bits and bobs and they're always in and out, finding fitness, but these big, massive injuries, you think each one of them takes a certain percentage away from a player. And I don't want him to come back a little bit weaker and a bit, more frail than he has been. So, but other than that, I would not even question getting rid of him at all or consider getting rid of him.
We had this discussion, didn't we, off the bat, about this whole Sir Jim Ratcliffe name-checking players and what was going on there, and what he was on about as well. And I think there was some confusion, wasn't there, about who he was saying wasn't good enough, who was overpaid, who needed to be moved on, and who he was just saying that we were still paying for.
Yes.
So that got a bit.
He wasn't completely clear on it. I think is the fundamental problem.
You're right there, because
yeah.
I said, just playing devil's advocate, and I was looking at some of the comments earlier, and some were agreeing, some were disagreeing about whether he was just saying, look, because he said we're paying 89 million quid this summer, didn't he?
Yes.
And so because of the way he worded his sentence, it was like, he did say that we have overpaid and some aren't good enough, and he also said we're paying this 89 million quid. And then sort of around these three different points, he's named a load of players.
Yeah.
So it's like, was he saying they're not good enough? Was he saying they're overpaid? Was he saying, look, we're still paying for these players?
Or all of them.
Yeah. You don't know.
No.
Now, and obviously no one's going to do another interview with him anytime soon, or if they did and they asked him, he'll probably have an answer that's inoffensive to everyone. But it was a bit vague, wasn't it, as to what he was actually getting
He was
at.
quite unclear.
Yeah.
I think it's as the owner of the club, he should have been a bit more certain to, if you're going to criticise current players, do it, right?
Yeah.
Okay, we can face the backlash. But if you aren't criticising them, you have to make it clear you're not, because otherwise it's like you can't leave it up to interpretation as to whether you are criticising current players or not. Either you're doing it because you're the owner and you don't give a shit, or you make it clear that actually just that I'm not saying those players I listed before are overpaid and not good enough. I was talking about payments. You know what I mean? He should have been more clear on that, I think.
Yeah, listen, there was some things in that interview I liked, there's some things I didn't. I thought it was foolish, naive at best, to start naming players in a negative way that's still at the club.
Yeah,
I just thought, it doesn't help. No matter what the situation is, even if you're trying to sell them, just from a business point of view, it doesn't help by saying, these players aren't that good, but you should buy them off me. Like, that wasn't good. Also, some of these players, Højlund's a big one, isn't he? He's suffering. And even Onana and Højlund have had confidence issues this season. Now, he might not have been being negative towards him. He might have just been saying, we're still paying him off. But even the sort of hint of that ain't going to help them. There's a chance he might not know, but I know Højlund spends a lot of time on social media. There's a chance he's seen that, and he's like, even the owners having a dig at me now. So I just don't think it did anyone any favours, to be honest with you. I think a lot of the interview did, but I don't think that bit did in particular.
No.
We'll move on.
Yes, what we got next? Bro's back from Mount Pain. Is this like a Brokeback Mountain? If you squint your eyes, can you see Brokeback Mountain in there? Is that what's going on here?
Is that what this is? Yep. Brokeback Mountain. Bro's back from Mount Pain. Brokeback Mountain, Bro's back from Mount Pain.
It kind of...
It's a stretch. I thought it was I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Here when I saw that hat.
Yeah, I like the hat, actually. Quite nicely edited hat work.
Bro's...
Bro.
It's like, Bro's back from Mount Pain, man.
Let's read it. Come on. I quite like that one. United have welcomed back United have welcomed Mount back to training for the first time this year following a 3-month injury absence. After 3 months of recovery since sustaining a hamstring injury during the derby in December, Mount is now nearing a 13th appearance this season and a 7th under Emery. The head coach has acknowledged the Europa League round of 16 second leg comes too soon for the midfielder. Being back playing after international break appears to be most likely. Ruben said of Mount, "I have to tell you I love that kid." During an interview with club media, you can look in his eyes that he wants this so bad, and this is the most important thing for me. He played in this system before, so it's perfect for him. I have 2 positions for Mason Mount, so he should be very happy. I have to say, I love that kid. Thoughts?
I hope Mason Mount gets fit. I hope he plays a part for Manchester United, because so far, as it stands at the minute, he's been an absolutely disastrous signing for Manchester United.
How so?
I mean, he cost a lot of money when we could have got him for free 9 months later. During those initial 9 months, he barely played. He was handed the most iconic shirt in football, and he's probably been the worst number 7 we've had in recent memory in terms of his performances, because he hasn't had any, because he's just been injured constantly. And every time we do see a performance that makes you think, okay, maybe this is a step forward, like Brighton away, for example, he gets injured during that game. Even the Manchester derby, the Etihad, he started that game, got injured. And then we've had a few sort of, no, it's not really his fault. He's a bit naive with some of his social media posts, like after the 3-0 loss to, was it Spurs or Liverpool, I forget. And he was like, don't worry guys, it's just a little cut on the head, I'll be back soon. Not the best thing to do.
Also took him 8 weeks to come back.
8 weeks to come back. He's a nice lad. I think we can buy into that he seems like he's a genuine geezer. And I want him to succeed. And when he does play, when we've seen at Chelsea than what we've seen at United, there's a player there, obviously. Just so far, we haven't seen it.
No.
And it's not his fault. It's not like he's out on the piss every night and he's not looking after himself. But his injury record has been shocking. And also, let's not forget, and this sounds a bit harsh, but I'll be honest with you, he has played about 35, 40 times for United. And he hasn't done much. He's had the odd game here and there, but he hasn't.
And it's hard, isn't it?
Sorry.
It's
not his
almost
fault,
all of those
you
games
know.
have been coming back from injury,
Yeah.
games, which you tend to give players a little bit of leeway. You know, the first 3 or 4 games, he's coming back from injury. He's still trying to settle in with his teammates.
Yeah.
Like, I feel bad for him. And obviously, I agree with everything you've just said there, but just to add a slightly wider
Go on,
kind of...
because I don't want to hit. I don't want to
No,
like.
of course, and
come
I don't
across
think
as
you're being unfair
kicking
whatsoever,
the kid
by
when
the
he's
way.
down or whatever. No, I'm not.
But he could be brilliant in the system.
Yeah.
Like, and if we just look at it as, right, this transfer may not have worked, who knows what happens in the summer, he seems to be on the list of players who is available if someone wants him. But if he can come back and stay fit, he might be the difference between winning that Europa League and not. Because he is, especially in that number 10 area, he can do a little bit of what Eriksen can do. He can do a little bit of what Garnacho can do, a little bit of what Ahmad can do. He can do a little bit of what Bruno can do, all wrapped up into one. And he's probably not as good as their kind of trademark thing as any of them. But he's a very well-rounded player, and he's more mobile than Eriksen, and he's better decision-making than Garnacho. And do you know what I mean? He does make a lot of sense in there. It's just that he can't stay fit. So if he can come back and he can stay this season in particular, and we'll worry about next season, later on, I think he could make a big difference. And there was a few games under Ten Hag in particular this season where I thought we're actually starting to see him being a little bit more effective. His press in particular was, hurting teams and allowing United to win the ball back higher up. That would be great. But like you said, we've just got to see it and hope that there hasn't been some change in his body that means he's just going to be an injury-prone player now, because he was never injury-prone. He was playing 40-plus games a season every year. And then he had that sort of pelvis injury, didn't he, for Chelsea, or pubis bone, whatever it was. And then after that, it's been this. So that's my big worry with him. So I'll have to wait and see. What we got next? It's a real deal baying Dalot.
It's a real deal baying Dalot.
What's that mean?
Bayern and Real Madrid.
So Real Madrid want him and Bayern Munich want him. Baying. You could have just had Bayern, like the whole team name, because that sounds more like buying than baying does, if you know what I mean. Bayern Munich, isn't it?
I think this is not just the worst pun I've ever seen. It's the worst thing I've ever seen. My eyes are ill. My eyes are ill from reading.
There's not a lot to really enjoy about that, is there?
It's just horrible. In every facet of it. It's just absolutely minging.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
It's not. I don't like seeing it.
It's aggressively bad.
Yeah, it is.
Like,
As a sentence, it's not nice to hear.
No.
In terms of the puns, it doesn't quite work.
No.
It's also a sentence that doesn't make sense.
No.
It's a real deal buying Dalot.
Like,
If someone said that to you, let's get the puns out. What would you make of this whole... Well, I'd say it's a real deal buying Dalot. That isn't a sentence that anyone can really deconstruct.
Do you remember when Mino Raiola had that meltdown on Twitter about Paul Scholes criticising Paul Pogba?
Yeah.
And he did those tweets, and they didn't make any sense. If you actually scrape, but you're like, what? What are you on about? Like, it's like that.
There's a hint
It's
of that
like
to
there's
it.
words that you know and have heard before and have seen before, and you get the sort of the gist of the topic that they're covering, but as a sentence, they don't mean anything.
They've been offered in a completely unique way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Let's read it though. Bayern Munich have joined Real Madrid in showing interest in making a summer transfer for Diogo Dalot. This is according to Team Talk. What's particularly impressed Bayern boss Vincent Kompany along with Real is Dalot's consistency and adaptability, which have made him a target for top European clubs. Inspired by Cristiano Ronaldo, he has fine-tuned his recovery, diet and preparation, making him one of the most reliable players at United. His discipline is also impressive, with just 2 suspensions at his time at the club. Versatility is another key strength that has impressed the clubs that are monitoring him. Under multiple managers, he's performed well on both defensive flanks, proving indispensable. In attack, he's contributed 7 goals and 13 assists in 15,686 minutes for United, which is not that's not a ratio I've ever seen before. I've never seen assist to minutes, overall minutes ratio. Sometimes you'll see it per 90, sometimes you'll see games played. I've never seen anyone say 7 goals and 13 assists in 15,686 minutes.
No, that's
before.
so bizarre.
Yeah.
Like,
Also,
what?
that's his whole career at United,
Like,
isn't it?
yeah, I think
Siri,
go on.
what's 15,686 divided by 90?
15,686 divided by 90 is approximately 174.2888.
So we're looking at sweaty goal involvements in 174 games. Bizarrely, the pun isn't the worst thing I've read on this screen tonight.
It's not. I know he's a defender, so obviously it's
Yeah.
not going to be 1 in 2.
Yeah.
But it's roughly 1 in 10, which is not much, really.
It's not
is it?
great, especially when you're a fullback that's been sort of, not lauded, but praised as someone who's quite good attacking wise, and you're playing in a system that encourages you to get forward. Yeah. It's not great, is it? And it's not just like this is the only time he's played in a system that's encouraged him to get forward.
Yeah.
We've seen it before where the fullbacks have got forward, even under Eric Ten Hag.
Yeah.
I just think that that's not great. It's a weird one, Dalot, because yes, he is fit all the time, he can play in multiple positions, and he has had some good games, but I do think he's having a poor season. I'm not going to lie to you. I think overall, this season he hasn't been great. I thought he had a good season last season. This season I think he's been poor. And it's a symptom of what goes on at United. It seems like, other than maybe Bruno, I honestly think almost every player, other than the ones we bought in the summer, he's not been here long enough, every player who's been at this club for more than 2 years has had one good season, one bad one. Almost in rotation.
That are currently here?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems to be like that's what happens at United. So
Yeah.
Martinez, his first season, fantastic. Second season, injured. Not his fault,
Yeah,
but he was
just
injured.
he
was just
a
injured,
bad
wasn't
season,
he?
yeah.
Onana, first season, bit patchy, but okay. Second season, almost disastrous at some points. I mean, I'm not saying his first season was great, but his second season has been worse. Who else have we got? I mean, who else has been at the club for a little while? Casemiro, first season good, second season awful.
Ericsson, Højlund,
first season good, second season awful.
Yeah.
Anthony, first season all right,
Yeah, all right.
second season fell off a cliff.
Yeah.
It's like there's no one capable, again, other than Bruno Fernandes, and maybe some of the newer players we've got will do this, but capable of having 2 good seasons. Even someone like Marcus, who I love, Marcus couldn't do it. He had an amazing season. We scored 30 goals. Then he had another season where he was terrible.
Yeah.
Or poor.
One of the few transfers in recent season that did do it, one of the only ones, is Varane.
Yeah.
Where he was like consistently good the whole time.
But even then,
But he was
not his
injured.
fault.
Yeah.
Injuries caught
Yeah,
him.
yeah,
So
yeah.
even like with Martinez, it's not his. He was poor. It's just he was injured for more or less the whole season.
Yeah.
I mean, he ended it on a high in the FA Cup final. But it's like this just weird trait that's going on at United. It's like you can't have 2 good seasons back to back. You have to have a good season, then either an injury-prone one or an underwhelming one, or both.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of an issue. I'm hoping that the likes of you guy in the late, and even some of the players we've got now are going to break that mould.
Because I think a few of them have started off well. I think you would say, I think Xerxes had an up and down season. I think Mazraoui's had a good season overall. I think Delict's had a good season overall, and I think so far Ugarte's had a good season overall.
Yeah.
So if they can replicate that next season,
You're right. It's. I mean, you're not going to get anywhere, and it's indicative of what United have been in it as well. Because we always do this. We'll have one season where we get into the Champions League, and the following season we won't.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? We'll have one season where we're doing really well, and it's like, we're up near the top of the table at Christmas, whatever. And then the next season, the manager's getting sacked.
Yeah.
So we do need to fix it. We need to find some consistency.
Constant thread, isn't it?
And hopefully we will do sooner rather than later.
Right, what we got? United advantage for Juve ace Dusan.
That's
It's been helped a lot by the picture.
Yeah.
It's a very good Photoshop, that.
yeah. It's not terrible.
Got Deuce, his name's Dusan.
Yeah, I get it, and it's okay.
I quite like that.
Yeah.
That's comfortably the best one tonight.
Yeah.
That one actually works. I could imagine that one on the back of the sort of the Daily Express or something like that. It's way too long. That would be like the sort of byline or whatever. But I could see that. United advantage for Juve ace Dusan. Yeah, I like that. Ruben Amorim and influential figures behind the scenes. What in the Illuminati is this? What do you mean influential figures behind the scenes? Just a shadow that looms over Jim Ratcliffe as he trembles and signs a cheque. Will consider signing Dusan Vlahovic for a cut price fee. Old Trafford has become a viable destination thanks to Juventus dropping their demands ahead of the summer transfer window, according to Give Me Sport. Juventus.
Someone's pointed out as well, Deuce is spelled wrong.
Oh well.
Oh well, there's the attitude.
Oh well, get a life, he said.
There's the attitude we want.
Get a life.
Oh well, get a life.
Get a life, yeah.
No, well done.
Spelling
for pointing
correctly.
out.
That's for nerds. Yeah, getting it right.
You Poindexters.
Yeah. Departure. Wait, what? Juventus have turned their attentions towards sanction his departure. Sorry, that is a ludicrous way of saying that he's up for sale if someone wants him. They've turned their attentions towards sanctioning his departure. What are you up to there? Oh, I'm just thinking, just considering. I'm just turning my attention towards sanctioning Vlahovic's departure.
It's mental,
that doesn't make sense,
no,
does it? Why would you say that?
Insane.
Yeah, I'm just going to probably spend most of the week just sanctioning the departure of Vlahovic.
Do you know what?
See the sanctioner.
Fed up of you turning your attention to sanctioning departures.
Just on Real Madrid, the penalties there.
What's going on here with the penalties?
So they're 3-2 up after how many penalties? Do we know? Real Madrid have won.
4-3 pens. I think, Real Madrid win the penalty shootout.
Of course they do. You just can't. What's the point? You can't.
They're inevitable, aren't
they? Yes, they are. United are among a host of Premier League sides that have considered a move for Vlahovic, who has racked up 16 goal contributions this season, and a bid as low as 25 million could be enough to get the deal over the line. The problem with Vlahovic is he's kind of living on. He's almost like a United transfer. They bought him for what was 65 million, somewhere in that ballpark, Juventus, and he's been all right, and he's done decent things. But they want to get rid of him because he's not been the player that they thought he was going to be. And United might come in and get him, and he's still only 25, and he's got potential. But he's done decent-ish numbers in a league where you can't always rely on the goals anyway, because the likes of Edin Dzeko was deemed surplus to requirements at Man City and then went to dominate Serie A for 3 or 4 years. Yeah. We saw the same from Zlatan at United, wasn't quite good enough. Then went to America, then went to Serie A and won the league with AC Milan.
Lukaku did it for a bit as well.
Lukaku did it. It's a sort of familiar story. So if he's underwhelming for Juventus and they're willing to get rid of him for like half the fee they bought him for, that does worry me a little bit.
It's a heavy shirt, that United shirt.
Yeah, it is.
This is why I know I talk about strikers. I want a striker who's got a bit of pedigree. I want someone who's scored a lot of goals somewhere and who can come in and who can maybe have that, everyone loves the word aura, don't they? But something a bit like that, having a bit of swagger, a bit about you. Looking at Vlahovic's numbers over the last 4 years. I mean, I can go to the last 5 because it'll make it look better. But it's 20 and 24. When he was at Fiorentina his last season there, which is what basically excellent. Got him his move to Juve, because that's fantastic. Then it was, this is in all comps, 9 in 21, 14 in 42, 18 in 38.
That's pretty good last season.
And this season so far, 14 in 34.
It's all right.
That's what I mean.
It's like not a sort of Ciro Immobile kind of
22
Tonali kind of
in Serie A,
numbers.
22 appearances, 9 goals this season. That's not that dissimilar from Joshua Zirkzee and Rasmus Højlund numbers in their last seasons in Serie A.
Yeah.
It's very similar.
Yeah, it is.
And that concerns me because they were younger and you could go, well, they're on the cusp of just... And it feels like Vlahovic isn't on the cusp of... He's kind of... I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like... He's no longer that guy. Let me know what you think. I've not watched a lot of
this
him.
Other thing as well, because
from
this
people that have watched a lot of him.
This comes up a lot when we're talking about transfers, especially attackers. People will use the phrase, well, he's better than what we've got. Like, anyone that might get 1 or 2 more goals than our strikers are therefore worth spending money on. That isn't the standard. The standard isn't, will they get more than the 4 goals that Rasmus Højlund's got this season? It's, are you actually good enough to propel us up the league? Are you very good? Because slightly better than completely underwhelming isn't really worth anything to me. We need someone who's actually could or will be or already is good enough to make us a proper team. Someone who can get you 20 goals a season, not 8 compared to 4. Do you know what I mean? It needs to be better than just slightly better than what we've got.
I think if you stuck Marcus Rashford in his team and stuck with him, he'd get you at least 8 goals in a season, but that's not good enough.
No, exactly.
And obviously there's other issues there with Marcus Rashford. We need someone who can be a genuine threat and has the potential to get you a goal every other game, not 1 in 4, or what we've got at the minute is like 1 in 6, which is nowhere near good enough. well, I'm just having a look at some of the comments here. Second PC says, looks like a tennis player. Very astute there.
Yeah.
A fool named Huggy says, Vlahovic would be good but has a bit of an attitude. Yeah, maybe. Oh, but that's a terrible pun, Dan United 94, or trying to get me to say stupid nonsense. So also, Entfic says, can we all admit the mistake was bringing back CR7? Look at the kids Ollie brought and what they've been doing. Greenwood has 50% of the entire squad's goals in the Premier League.
The Ronaldo thing, CR7. The Ronaldo thing, for me, is one of those weird sliding doors moments, isn't it? It's come to represent like this most recent wave of decline at United, I think. Like, I think it was the final throw of that real like superstar dice that Ed Woodward used to love throwing. It's that like, you've got to get him because it's not because it's best for us, but because it stops Man City. And I know you've said in the past that you would have done the same thing because you think he would have won them the Champions League, and maybe he would. But that, and I understand that from you because you're a Manchester United fan. These people should be putting the long-term future of Man United ahead of what we think as fans. And I feel like buying him when really what we needed was another young, exciting player to go in a young, exciting team. We just got it completely wrong. And I feel like maybe, obviously, it's not the same thing, but I do think that was such a turning point. And it basically, I don't think he cost Ollie his job, but I think remnants of that way of thinking is what inevitably let Ollie down. And I think we're still kind of trying to claw that back a little bit. And then because of that, we reacted by massively misspending under Ten Hag, going the other way, spending loads of money on lesser known players, and that didn't work either. So, I don't know, I do think that was a big sign in the Ronaldo one.
No, you go back to the Everton game when he dropped him, and there was obviously a fallout there.
You can't have that, can you?
Yeah, and Fergie even was caught on camera sort of criticising it, and it was obvious that it wasn't going to end well.
No.
And Ollie was already under pressure anyway, and I just think that the wheels were kind of coming off for him a bit, and I think you're right. Had Ollie had that sort of, I'm not saying it was all down to Ronaldo, and at least Ronaldo was scoring goals under Ollie and Ralph Rangnick, but I get your point. It felt like all of a sudden there was a bit of more pressure on him, and now you've got this superstar striker, and it's almost like, why are you not doing better when you've got Ronaldo? And it was a shame, and it's mad, isn't it, when you look at all these like final 10 games at United, didn't he win like 5 of them or 4 of them or something?
It wasn't that bad.
And you think, Jesus Christ, like
we take that now.
That's like,
and bringing it back to now. The power shift that happened when Ronaldo came there, you can't sub him off. You can't rest him. He's 37 years old and he has to play every minute. That can't be allowed to happen anymore. United have to. I think one of the reasons we're bringing young players in is because they will accept, being on the bench. They will accept rotation. They will be more hungry. They will be here to prove themselves, and they'll put the work rate in. And I think we can't be, if we're going to rebuild and come back, we can't be going back to the days of pandering to superstars that are basically, from that substitution, bigger than the manager. You can't have that anymore. So, if Vlahovic has got a bad attitude or whatever, or anyone has, then I don't think they should come to Man United, personally.
David Ite says the Devil's Den is his suggestion for the new Old Trafford or whatever it's going to be called. Any more for any more?
That's everything. There you go.
Well, we got there in the end, didn't we? Well done, son. I'm proud of you. If anyone didn't know, Real Madrid went through on penalties. Apparently there's a bit of controversy. Was there one of the penalties had to be retaken after he'd scored it, VAR getting involved?
And then he missed it?
No, it was scored and then they took it.
It was scored and then they took it again. And did they miss it on the retake?
No, they took it away.
Oh, they took it away, sorry. So he scored and then VAR removed the goal.
Why?
2 touches.
2 touches?
Oh, his 2 touches as he kicked it onto his standing foot.
He did kick-ups and then overhead kicked it in.
Right.
Can't do that.
Who was it? Was it Alvarez?
Alvarez,
Was it?
Yeah.
Well, at least it's a City player that got knocked
typical.
out. Dickhead.
Right. We're going to wrap it up there. Make sure you go and check Joe out on the Sloppy Joe's podcast. Also, don't forget, we've got the preview up tomorrow morning for the Real Sociedad game. That'll be out first thing in the morning. You can check that out. Plus, Joe's going to be here for the watch along. It is the season. Yeah. This is it. If we lose, we are out of the Champions League next season, out of Europe next season, and we ain't winning anything this season.
Correct.
It's all over. But you can get involved in the watch along, so get your phones out, film yourselves in landscapes, give us your score predictions, 30-second score predictions, and send them to paddockmatchday@gmail.com, and you will be used as part of the pre-match build-up for the biggest game in Manchester United's history.
Certainly the biggest game, one of the biggest games this week.
Yeah, all right. The second biggest game this week.
Perfect.
That's been Joe Smith. I'm Jay Martin. This has been Paddock Live. Don't forget to hit like, share, and subscribe. Thanks for watching.